Welcome to the Tippy Top Entrepreneur Experience. Now, we've had lots of entrepreneurs on the show that are currently in the saddle, but today we've got a special treat. We've got Alex Packham, who's been through the valley of death and made it out the other side and secured a successful exit with Adobe. So big congrats again, Alex, and thanks again for being on the show.
No, of course, delighted to be here, and really excited to share some of the stories. Love the Valley of Death reference. I've heard that a lot in the last 5 years. So excited to be here. Really, happy to be telling some stories today.
Oh, great. That reminds me of that song, right? As I walk through the valley, you're like, yes, that one. Great. Now, Alex and I only met recently in December 2021 through a mutual contact, Peter Walsh, who was actually on the show a few episodes ago in season 1. And Peter's now at Thoroughbred, but of course he set up Match Capital, where he put on the infamous WeWork events where Alex and I probably crossed paths. I don't know if we made the connection back then. But anyway, and I think, the reason we've got Alex on the show is that he's a proper grassroots entrepreneur. He wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth, or maybe he was, but he's built this business. He's built this business from the ground up and made it all the way to the tippy top, which is the definition of the podcast. So thanks for being the best example we can have. Alex, tell us your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely it always feels like from the ground up. I think wherever you start running a business in any way, shape or form is tough. But my background is, on a personal note, always been very entrepreneurial, just by characteristic in nature. Typical selling stuff in the playground story, all of that kind of background when I was very, very young. Always studied business management and business themes, and was very interested in business from an extremely young age through to my teenage years, etc., etc. I went to uni in what I would call the kind of early-ish stages of social media. So Facebook was popular. Twitter was what I would call up and coming. Instagram didn't exist from memory, thinking about it. Certainly no TikTok, no Snapchat, etc., etc. So I was I'm in the millennial generation, and I'm probably in that crossover bit where I had, part of my growing up period where there was no such thing as social media, and obviously a lot of my life where there has been social media. So the phenomenon, if you like, of social media has been in and around in a big part of my life, and certainly a big part of my career. When I was studying, 2011-ish, 2010, 2011, I realized really early that all of my purchasing decisions were being made by what I saw on Facebook. So that was whether I went to a certain bar, a certain restaurant, or bought a certain brand of clothing. Like, it really just was in tune with me at quite a young age, that suddenly this massive platform where all my friends was influencing all of my purchasing decisions. And had a little bit of a light bulb moment and thought, I think this social media thing is going to be really important for business, really important for marketing, and how consumers are going to interact with products, etc. So I went deep on like a research hole when I was sort of 19, 20, trying to figure out what the social media marketing thing was. It was in the early days where the likes of Gary V's and Mari Smiths, if you've come across those characters, were really starting to build their personal brands in this space. So started very, very early, just monetizing Facebook pages and Twitter pages, as in managing them on behalf of brands and monetizing that from my perspective. So that was my very first step in business. When I graduated uni, I went on to run social media for Odeon Cinemas for 2 years. So I was one of the first people in the sort of social media job space with a social media job title. And people used to laugh the fact that I got paid to manage Facebook pages and stuff like that for brands, which is quite ironic nowadays. But
absolutely,
I did that for 2 years, and that was great fun. And then I went on to Now TV, which was part of Sky, which was really I would say a startup into a scale up as part of Sky, in my second corporate job and corporate life, and was there for 18 months and watched that business grow so quickly, again, running social and content. But it was really like being part of a startup scale up journey. They funded it so well, and it had such a great group of people and talent working on the business. Now TV, now lots of people know it in the UK, but when we were there, it was like 40, 50 people in a room, building a business, which was just so much fun. And that almost gave me the buzz for startups and scale-ups to a certain extent. I'd always wanted to go on and pursue my own business at some point, but Now TV gave me the exposure to what a true scale-up could look like when it was well-funded. So I left Now TV to start an agency. Wanted to start my first business, which was not very capital intensive, that you could literally just get off the ground, with me, basically one person. So I was very lucky that I had some clients in place. Peter, Match Capital, was one of them, which was amazing. It's funny to come full circle. And then very quickly, so was Odeon. Sky was in some capacity as well, and then worked with lots and lots of startups. So my agency business grew quite quickly, but quite organically through, referrals and things like that. And ContentCal was a kind of idea within this. So really, even at Odeon, when I was using different products and spreadsheets and everything to manage content, it was really clear to me that there was space for a product that really did this end-to-end publishing process, right the way from having an idea, trying to plan it properly, trying to get all the relevant parties, agencies, freelancers in the same platform, in the same place, calendarize it, get your plan together and publish it, etc. Use analytics, blah, blah, blah. And that product didn't exist. And my agency taught me really that whether you're Sky, whether you're Odeon, whether you're another really big brand, or whether you're a mid-sized company or a small-sized company, everybody has the same problem. There's slightly different lengths of process. There's slightly different complications, but that problem of like idea to publish to reporting, etc., did not exist in a software product end to end. And that's where I decided, ContentCal had to happen, basically. So set up a separate business, funded it slightly separately, ran it slightly separately, had a life where I was running both an agency and a software business for a couple of years, did an accelerator and raised some seed funding, merged the two businesses together, and then went on a journey really of 2 years of kind of morphing, if you like, the agency into the software business, raising more capital along the way, and then transitioning, once we kind of transitioned to a SaaS business, growing that company, a pure play SaaS, and then sold to Adobe a few months ago. So that's a whistle stop tour, but it's a great journey and so many learnings and so many experiences, and just delighted to be part of Adobe as well, because for us as a business, as ContentCal, it's like truly scaling what we've got to our audience in a way that we'd never do independently. So really excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can realize the vision you had even greater than you probably set out at the beginning. Amazing.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
No, excellent experience. And hopefully we can download some of the salient elements. I mean, I'm sure we can't capture it all, but I'm sure you'll be on the other side of the line if we need anything else. So we've had a brief discussion and tried to distill down those topics. And I think we've come up with some really good ones. Number one, how to build a solid business. I think people forget that often. Number two, why you should be an entrepreneur, and that's going to be a good one. And then, of course, the star of the show, how to exit like a ninja, because some people do it better than others. So let's jump straight in. How to build a solid business. So you talk about revenue from day one and not delaying making money. Now, besides the obvious, why is this important?
So I think when you're building a business, and that's a really important word, because there's a big difference between building a business and a platform or a piece of technology. If you are building a business, you need to get your culture, and you need to personally really understand that a business is about generating revenue and eventually potentially generating profit, but certainly generating revenue, particularly in technology, because that is the ultimate, in my opinion anyway, validation of what you're doing, that someone or a group of people or a business or a team has parted with cold hard money, to buy what you're offering. And that ultimately is what business is. It's fueled through transactions, right? So I think culturally, and also from like an entrepreneurial standpoint, it's really important to have that as part of your core ethos. Now, that doesn't always mean that you will make money from day one. Like, it doesn't mean that you absolutely have to, but there's lots of platforms out there that go on to have amazing journeys that actually never really generate any revenue, which again is there's nothing wrong with that, but culturally you've got to have a view that you're going to build customers, you're going to validate your assumptions through customers. I think it builds good discipline. I think it builds the right mentality in your team. It really also helps you challenge assumptions and challenge the definition of value and what is valuable. So, I would deem valuable software, for example, as something that has gone through an amazing R&D process where probably you aren't generating revenue, for example. You're testing and learning with customers. You're constantly speaking to people. You're shaping your team and your products, etc., around trying to build something which is extremely customer centric. And then you are going on that sales journey, that growth journey, that path to actually generate that revenue and start to really challenge yourself that is the validator of your success. And there's micro, moments to get there, which can be users, it can be gathering email addresses, it can be monitor active users, et cetera, obviously. But pushing yourself and your teams, and particularly people who aren't as commercially in tune or focused, which typically kind of is in the technology space, for example, technology like roles, to really say it is about customers and revenue is important. You also get alignment, right? And one of the other big things about building a business, really from day one, but certainly when you add more people, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people plus, like you need a center of the organization. And lots of businesses are very technology centered, and that's great, but they've still got to go validate that technology through sales. You could be very product centered and have an amazing product, but again, an amazing product that nobody uses or buys, to a certain extent, depending on the use case, is not really that valuable. So there's no favorites, but you've got to have a commercial angle to your company. And I think that sales and revenue is the way to do that. So yeah, that's kind of my thought process on it. I just think it builds the right discipline and foundation, because building great software, like I said, if you want to build a great product and that's all you want to do, and then potentially try and sell the IP, for example, then revenue potentially isn't what you're trying to achieve. But it will, you'll be building something different. You're building a product, an R&D center, really, as opposed to what I would call a business, basically.
I like that. Very good. And then the word I wrote down as well is discipline. I think that's a fabulous one, just keeping yourself true. Great. And now a very provocative one, and easier for some than others, but you've said founders must delegate and hire people smarter than them, which is intimidating for some. But anyway, you've done it the right way. You've done this, and say it's the only way to be successful. Tell us more.
So, yes, I mean, this is so key, I would say. I'd almost say this is my number one thing. So when I was early 20s and in the early stages of one's career in general, you build your credibility, and generally you build your center of excellence, if you like, as a person by being someone who's really good at something. Typically you're not coming in as the generalist, you're not a people manager straight away, etc., because you haven't got that experience. So you are almost tuned to a certain extent to be an expert in something, whether that's social media, whether that's copywriting, whatever it could be in any industry. As you go through your career, and especially if you go down more of a management track where you are predominantly going to be managing people, managing projects, bringing things to life, as opposed to potentially being a designer or a developer, for example, you have to learn the art of delegation and management as your number one thing. And you have to switch your mindset that your definition of success and measurement of success is what you're able to achieve through your teams and the people that you work with, as opposed to being the expert at X, Y, and Z. So we always reference in ContentCal, and I always reference to people I work with, there's individual contributor roles, which is people who do stuff, make stuff, etc. And then there's management roles who are typically in meetings, facilitating discussion, overcoming challenges with different people, mentoring, etc., managing projects. And it's really important to understand which one of those types of characteristics and types of roles that you are. If you go down the manager track, which most leaders within businesses have to, because realistically you have to get stuff done through teams if you're building an organization, like delegation is the number one thing. My belief is, as a leader, you should only have 3-ish things that you actually do, give or take, within a week, a month, whatever the time zone is, but like really limited amount of tasks that you physically actually have to do, whether that's writing a presentation, giving that presentation, hosting a workshop, whatever it might be. Everything else should be done through delegation. And the critical thing around delegation is, firstly, having amazing people to work with, right? So building a fantastic management team, people you can trust, people who've got track record, people who have got clear alignment with your vision and mission, and that you can work with, and giving them the objectives that you would like to achieve, providing the context as to where that fits within the organization and the end goal, whether that's selling or IPOing or whatever it might be, how they can succeed, financially, it's important, like how these leaders can succeed themselves on a personal level, how you can help them achieve their goals, and then let them do their jobs and touch base, like give people the space to build their teams, give people the space to achieve what they need to achieve, get their projects done, etc. But have a great dialogue with them. I believe in weekly catch-ups. Like, it doesn't have to be long, half an hour is enough most of the time, but like keep the constant flow of communication going, so you're getting constant feedback within each other, and keep setting big goals to achieve. So if you think about a technology business, again, once you get out the early stage of just building the product, you need a sales leader, you need a product leader, you need a technology leader, you need a marketing leader, et cetera, finance. So you've got to build that to get stuff done. And so for me, like I said, the balance is three things that you really do, max, really. And obviously there's going to be times when that flexes, but try and get it to three. And work with great people outside of that who are obviously going to be more specialist in their roles than you are. There's a lot of commentary around generalists, and actually I would call myself a generalist. That's quite a difficult position to be in sometimes, because you're never really an expert at something. But if you're able to retain information, or if you're not, write a lot of notes, like you can have a big archive of how certain technology works if you're not a technologist, or the methods for building product, or sales methodology. Just you've got to become that center of knowledge, not to know everything, but to know a little bit about everything. And that is a challenge. So that's my thought process. And to me, that's how you get things done. Like building a culture of accountability off the back of that, having the right meetings to make sure people are hitting goals, etc., is important. But delegation is just critical to being successful, in my opinion, to growing a successful business.
Well said. And I want to pick up on something you mentioned there about creating, not that you create, but you uncover leaders throughout the rest of the organization, and you don't have the leader follower, you've got the leader culture, and that's just fabulous. And you're a testament to the fact that it actually works. So there you go. Now you mentioned you learned a lot of skills on the way, and you're a generalist, and it's a steep learning curve. How do entrepreneurs prepare themselves for the journey ahead of time, or is it something you have to learn on the job?
I think you can put yourself into the right mentality. So, for example, as an entrepreneur, and I would say this to everybody, my role changed in the early stages of probably every 6 months, in the sort of later mid stages, probably every year. And so you need to have that mindset where you are embracing of change. You actually enjoy change. You have to really measure yourself on that. Do you really like change? Because to be a leader of a growing organization is a constantly changing situation. Every day is definitely different. And so you can mentally prepare yourself for the fact that no one's going to give you a review. So you need to review with yourself, or find a peer that you will review with, a mentor or something like that, or an investor or something, so that you are getting that feedback as well. And you are going on that journey like that. To me, that's been so important. So challenging yourself, being very open to change, being very open with your teams about the fact that that this phase is about zoning in on product, and I need to learn more about product, and the next phase is zoning in on sales, or whatever it might be. And just being, really embracing of going on that journey would be the kind of prep that you can do. I would say then it all becomes about quick learning cycles and delivery, like you say, learning on the job. So there is no other way other than that to do it. You can embrace, like I said, prepare yourself mentally, but then you've just got to start doing stuff, running meetings, doing the day-to-days, etc., and getting feedback. And that sometimes is feedback and reflection at the end of the day by yourself, just saying, go through my diary, what went well, what didn't. Never beat yourself up over everything that you think you could have done better, etc. Each day is a chunk of learning, and then you've got to move on. And I would say the other thing, to be perfectly honest, and this has been critical for me, like having different mentors at different stages throughout the journey. No entrepreneur has to go this alone. There is so many networks, which we were just talking about offline, but networks, access to mentors, online articles, and ideally someone obviously you can work with quite closely. Yes. You want someone you can call at any point of the day, really, and just vent and talk to and ask for help, So you've got to go into, again, the mindset that's going to empower you to be more successful. And my last point on it really is just really, no matter where you are in your career, even if you're still extremely experienced, like you're always going to learn, because when you meet new people, they bring new perspectives. There's a great saying somewhere, and it's like, your perspective on the world, no matter where you are, is 0.0000, whatever the zeros are, 1. And it's so small. And that's something I learned, is that you could be in a meeting and forget that there are 10 people here who are all interpreting this meeting completely differently to you are, but you think your version is the right version. And so, you have to be embracing of all those things to kind of grow, basically, as a person in business.
Yeah, and that keeps you humble. There's a good book called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Hansel. I'll put it in the write-up, but it's all about, you've got your view on money, and that's totally clouded by your experiences, and that doesn't represent reality. It's that 0.001 of all the money things that have happened in the world. So you need to break those models down. So yeah, absolutely. Great. Okay. Number two, we want to keep this podcast inspiring, which I mean, for you, it's natural, and of course, we all want to do what you did, so that's great. Now, but tell us, so why should you be an entrepreneur? Is topic number two. And you've actually mentioned that everyone should build a business, whether it's successful or not. Can you share why?
Yeah, so I think whether it's a business or whether it's a side hustle or whether it's a big startup or whether it's like, yeah, just trying to learn some of the basics of what, you know, running a business could be like, some sort of exposure to running your own business. And that could literally be a conversation with someone who does, for example, I would say is quite a fulfilling thing to do. And that could, like I said, that can literally just be, I want to have a conversation with someone about it to understand what it's truly like, right the way through to running building a business. And I would say the thing is, it encapsulates so many things in people's lives, right? So if you can build something you're passionate about, if you can, you know, build your personal economic engine, how you make money out of something that you love, something that you find inspiring, whatever it may be, if you can surround yourself, like I said, with really amazing people who, you know, help you learn, level you up, challenge you, but, you know, you have a lot of fun with, which is the important thing. If you can learn new stuff, that could be technology, that could be arranging flowers. If you do that kind of business, it could be anything, like a new skill. But this is the components of, in my opinion anyway, life that make things like exciting and worth doing. And I hate the, if you're miserable in your job narrative, you should leave and start a business. Like, life isn't that bloody simple kind of thing. Like, not everybody can just go and change their job and change their life. Like, it's just not, that's not the way things are in reality. Yeah. However, we are in a time where if you put the right steps in place, you should, in my opinion, in this, you know, not you should, but you can find a way to build what I would call a very fulfilling life by working in something that you truly enjoy. And that is not always a quick process. So for some people, it is like quite quick. They really know what they like and they can do it. Some people, that's a process of discovery, and different circumstances prevent that. But like, the more every day literally goes on with the power of the internet, the decreasing costs of being able to start some form of business, which could be complementary to a job, for example, or something, it is so fulfilling. And it's so challenging as well, which, you know, if you like challenge in life, then I think that's important. And that's it for me. Like, you don't even have to do it for longer than a month if you don't like it at the end of the day, but it's just exposing yourself to the potential. Like, I had the most fulfilling time, and sometimes the most obviously unbelievably challenging times as well, doing my journey in business. But everybody I've met in and around the entrepreneurial space, whether that's an investor, an advisor, someone who runs their business, etc., they are genuinely the most, I would say, fulfilled people I meet. Like, that doesn't mean to say they have to be on the super success scale. Like, there are lots of people who are just on the journey, and the journey is a lot of fun. You know, they are very, very fulfilled, and that for me feels like something that everybody should try. It doesn't mean you have to do it, like I said, but everybody should have a go, basically, and see where it fits in their life. I just think life is too short to not have a go, if that makes sense, basically.
Absolutely, I like that. And there's that good saying, a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. And I think, you know, we're talking about the, you know, being a sailor of life and really being fulfilled. And you reminded me of those TikTok posts where they go, I quit my job and moved to Bali. And there's like this picture of them jumping off a cliff. And it's like, and now what? Like,
yeah. There's so much. It's funny you talk about the WeWork era, you know, of 10-ish years ago, or whatever it was, 5 years ago, because that was all proliferated at the same time, and that was a very Hello Magazine version of business. You know, it's like super glamorized. Most of it's fake. You know, a good 90% of it's fake, and it built a very strange perspective on what either life or reality is like or should be like. So yeah, it's funny, that is. And actually, I would say one of the best things in our space, if you like, over the last probably 5 years, is that has kind of decreased. You still have accounts, like you say, doing it, but I think everybody is slowly getting their heads around that is largely, shall we say, slightly dramatized in most instances, and more of a fake magazine version of what things could be like rather than reality for most of those people.
Absolutely. And you also mentioned something very pertinent, that it might take 5 years or 10 years to get there, but if you want to go somewhere in this day and age, you can probably get there. You can't just quit today, but you know, side hustle, passion, you will get there undoubtedly.
100%. Yeah.
Great. Now, a bit to business strategy. You've talked about the importance of dominating a market segment and trying to build something that is a real game changer. And, you know, we often do see a lot of Me Too businesses, and there maybe is some merit to some of them. But besides the obvious, why is it important to do what you did? And tell us a bit about your vision and how you thought about it.
I think one of the best bits of advice I got quite early on was that if you're going to build a startup in particular, and a startup is, you know, I'm talking about a funded startup that wants to go on and build a big vision. I'm not talking about if you want to build a kind of good, healthy, small business. So important to frame it like that, because they are different. If you're trying to build a big startup and you're trying to raise capital and go on that journey, you have to reverse engineer the biggest potential outcome that you could possibly think of and generate. Because if you raise capital, particularly from VCs, obviously, etc., that is their game, and you are playing in their game if you are deciding to raise money. And you don't have to get to this big, huge thing, whatever that vision ends up being, but you have to paint the picture of possibility. And also you have to be wanting to get there. You don't have to actually do it, like I said, but you need to really think. So for example, in our space, like, we categorically believed, and I did, and then we built, you know, people around that came on and bought into the vision, that there was a big gap for the products like ContentCal, and that people who created content in their day-to-day life deserved a product and would want a product that we could create that would, you know, encapsulate calendaring, publishing, etc., etc. Like SaaS is obviously, it's a very business-focused tool, but people who are creating content all day for their job, faffing around in 10 different products that don't work, or, you know, just spending a lot of time doing admin is not fun at the end of the day. So a big part of our ethos was like, we got to make these people's working lives better. And to do that and to be successful in that, we got to scale this platform once we get like the initial traction to as many people as possible. Because yes, we want to build an economic engine, build a business, get return for investors, etc. But the most important thing is the person who logs in and uses ContentCal every day loves the product, makes their day-to-day life 10 times easier. They save time, they can put that to other good work or get some more free time back, whatever it may be. And that is the most satisfying outcome. And that's why product development is always so focused on user outcomes. Like, you need them to feel that feeling of using your technology product. So for me, really, it is about aligning yourselves to your likely and future investor or your current investor's interest. You've got to do that. You have got to go on that journey, like I said, and paint that big vision. And also that's going to bring the best talent to you. Like, the best talent, or certainly the most ambitious talent, so combining, I would say, kind of best in breed plus really, really ambitious, put someone in that group. They want to come on a journey like that. And they don't want to do it necessarily, again, forever. But like, if you're in the prime stages of your career, you want to do something exciting and big. You don't want to do something which, you know, is just a kind of day-to-day thing, which there's nothing wrong with, because if you want that, you should go for that. But like, lots of people do want to wake up and be challenged every day. And sometimes it's extremely painful and frustrating, but that's what gives them their kick. So I just think that's important. Like, the other thing is, if you don't do that, you're never going to get there. Like, there is no eureka moment. There is no like perfect leg up to say, hey, buddy, like, this is how you're going to get to your next stage of your business journey. Like, you have got to lead it. So that for me is important. And like I said, you don't have to get there. And that was the best bit of advice I got. Like, you've got to paint the vision. If you get bought out along the way, if it doesn't work out, if you merge into a different company, whatever the kind of exit event is, it doesn't matter, basically. I mean, it matters obviously to the financial implications and everything else, but like, you've painted the vision, you painted the picture that's going to give you the best chance of success, like, foundationally. So that's it from me. Like, if you're going to do this, you've got to go for it. And if you don't feel like that's for you, then there is businesses that don't need that level of like, we must be the biggest. You know, you can build a fantastic business in a different segment of the market, and it can suit your lifestyle, which is ideal for lots of people. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. So it's depending on how you want to go down the journey, basically.
And you clarified something really important there as well. You didn't set out to try and beat Hootsuite or something like that. You know, I don't know if they were on the scene yet, but you set out to solve someone's problem and do that 100 times for millions of people. I mean, and that, you know, no, disrupting a market is not a vision.
Yeah, totally true. Yeah, beating another business is not a vision. Like, no. it's just, I mean, a lot of companies, sort of 20 years ago, big part of their corporate visions was like, we've got to be better than X. Yeah. Well, Joe Blogs doesn't care if you're better than X. Joe Blogs cares if this product works for them, like you just said, to solve their specific problem. Yeah. And it's, what they choose to use. That's all. Nobody cares if your business becomes bigger than X, Y, and Z. They just want to use something that they love and works for them. And if you can attune to that specifically, like, well, not just in the early stages, the whole way through product development, like that's how you win. Like that is how you win.
Absolutely. Great. Now, you spoke about the network you build as an entrepreneur is amazing. How much of your time do you spend actually networking, over, say, let's say a 2-year period?
I would say I don't see networking as a chunk of time, if that makes sense, or an activity. So, and actually, it's an interesting question because I've never really been asked that. But like, I am sometimes very introverted. Like if I'm doing a task or I'm having a day where I need to do specific types of work, like I don't really want to speak to loads of people. I just want to get on with whatever I've got to do. But if it's my days about connecting and doing meetings or going to an event or something like that, like I can switch on extrovert mode and I enjoy it. Like I get kicks off that as well. And I foresee every engagement as an opportunity to meet someone who could, I suppose in some ways, without being a bit cringeworthy, like change my life. Like I could meet someone at an event for 20 minutes. They could introduce me to somebody else. I could meet someone who have a coffee with them. And actually I get on with them really well and they become a friends. And that's how lots of my friends, like in London, for example, come about, just having conversations with people. So I don't go in with like specific, so to speak, networking goals. I always have obviously what I've got going on in my life and business and what I'm trying to achieve as one of the things I like to reference in conversations, because you never know how that's going to interest someone else. And like having invested in startups, and obviously a lot of networking in startup land is about trying to find investors or trying to find businesses to invest in. I've never been shy about saying, hey, I run ContentCal, we're raising some capital, we do this is where we're at, this is my background, this is my journey. But it's not me saying that because I say you should now invest. It's like that, I know that information could be interesting to some people. And if it's not, fine, everybody just cracks on with their day. So I don't see networking as like a job and a thing and a chunk of time. I see meeting people as extremely important to building your career. That's kind of how I would think about it. And also like just framing that in a way that if you say you're an introverted character, like just knowing you need to push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit. Like every time, again, when I first started my career, public speaking, doing meetings, etc., was like my worst nightmare. And you have to go on a journey to learn that. So that's how I think about it. And, connecting people when you're not the person to solve the problem, but facilitating someone else that you know is really good. I think that's just as important so that others can be connected to people as well. Like not just your journey networking, so to speak, and meeting people, like being someone who can say, oh, hey, I'm not actually very good at that, but I do know someone who's outstanding and they're a great person. And both of you being connected is going to be a good thing. So it's more by osmosis, if that makes sense, by how I suppose I think about day-to-day life than it is a thing. But I would also just say it's critical again to success. It's so critical. Like you have to be willing to meet people, wanting to meet people and have dialogue. And for those that find small talk tough, like you need to learn how to do that, because that's a skill to get into the next stage of conversations, which I always find fascinating. People say, oh, I hate small talk. Well, not everybody loves it either, but it is typically the way you will engage in a conversation with someone. So you need to learn it as a skill if you don't particularly find it that like natural to you.
Yeah, no, welcome to the UK. There's the mandatory small talk piece, and then you can talk about what you really wanted to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. That's so funny. Culturally, in other places, it's like, why are you telling me about your life? I'm here to have a meeting, and you're like, well, that's how we do it over here.
It's like Wolf of Wall Street when he's talking to the Swiss banker, right? It's like, no, we chit chat first. You can't just dive in. That's not etiquette.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's so funny.
Oh, fabulous. Great. Okay, let's talk about the start of the show, how to exit like a ninja. And now that you've exited, what advice would you give to your 5-year ago self?
What would you, blimey? Well, you can't predict this thing, if that makes sense. Like I'm a planner, so I'm a planner in life. I had on lots of investment decks and things like that, potential acquirers, of which amazingly Adobe was on my list, but it was more in my potentially wildest dreams, and they know that. So it's just brilliant to come to that event in life. But you can't predict how that's going to happen, and you certainly couldn't in our case. And in some cases, obviously, you can engineer it. So I think that would be my two big things from it. Is that one is you can't create a path to an exit, and there is no right time to exit. Like, again, it's very much like there's no right time to start a business, there's no right time to exit your business. So it's a very organic process. And actually, one of the things I learned throughout it is that fit, and that, I mean, really people fit, is just probably way more important than anybody realizes. I think on the flip side, obviously you can go through the sale process, so to speak. So you can appoint a corporate advisor, they can go through a proper controlled sales process for you. And that is more around, are you not necessarily ready, but do you want to put your business up for sale and go through a controlled process? And for startups, again, particularly first-time founders, they don't even know that that's a thing. Going out and actually selling your business as a proactive activity, you think everybody's going to just randomly come to you and it's going to be this weird thing that just happens. No, you can go out and create a process to actually sell your company. So I would say those are the two big learnings. And also I'll tell you what the other thing is, which I thought about more than I should have, but my later stages thought about a lot less, is that there's no point really thinking about it that much whilst you're building your company. You need to focus all your energy on building a great company, because no one buys something that isn't a good business, good product, great business, etc. So your time and energy, although the exit might be the end goal at some point, needs to be on the here and now. And there'll come a time when future planning to that level is important. But yeah, I just when I realized that was almost like a pivotal moment in my business life. If I don't build something absolutely, really well-oiled ran business and a great machine, nobody's going to want to buy this thing anyway, even if it's the best product in the world. So it was a bit of a rambly answer, but yeah, it's a good question.
I wrote that down and I'll summarize it at the end, but I think you nailed it there. Now, you've said negotiating an exit is no walk in the park, even if they really, really want to acquire you. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I go into loads of details on it, but it's a very unique process is what I would say. And obviously negotiation, you can have in life for all sorts of things. You can ask for 10% off your coffee in a coffee shop and see how that negotiation goes. It is a different version of that. But I would just say that in that instance, the negotiation is quite unique to the specific thing that you're going through. It is, although it's the negotiation process in theory on a basic level is very similar to just getting a price off something or negotiating something you're buying. It is very, very nuanced and complicated when it comes to buying a business, because there's people, there's product, there's process, there's teams, there's culture, there's time zones, there's a gazillion things to consider. There's legal jurisdictions, there's all that sort of stuff as well. So I would say that, it's a very, 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 very complicated process, and don't go in naively. If you're not versed in that space, bring in help. That's the other thing. Because I think if I'm honest, and I could be wrong on this because I haven't got this far into what life is like post exit, but I think the reason lots of these things can go wrong is because they haven't done the right amount of work in the actual sale process. And that would be my best guess. Well, I feel like in my scenario that has happened. I feel very, very in tune with what our process is like and what life is going to be like after. I think that could go, I think a lot of M&A goes wrong because not that prep has been done throughout the process. So that would be my thing, really. It is extremely complicated. And if you don't feel, you're not well versed in it, bring people in to help you, basically, that have done it before.
Yeah, well said. And I think, don't underestimate it. And there's a lot of the corporate financiers we work with, they show a graph of value destruction. And if you don't do all the prep here, you'll get to the end and then they might chip the price and you'll lose, a couple of £1 million just like that. So
be prepared. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Now, for those people who are familiar with it, there's usually an earnout. So you get your initial cash and you get your earnout, but not all earnouts are created equal. And sometimes this is a carrot that actually never materializes because it's tied to unrealistic revenue targets. But some earnouts are just about an orderly handover, about transferring your knowledge and making sure that the business keeps the lights on and starts ticking, and in your case continues to grow. Do you want to talk us through that a bit more?
Yeah, I won't go into like details on my one, but just perspectives on it in general. I think look, it's an important part of a generic M&A process, because you often you need the people, the process, and those are the two key things really to make sure that you've got the successful next stage of the company within the new format, so to speak. So you need to have incentives aligned to that at the end of the day, and everybody needs to be pretty transparent and open about that and understand it, because your interests as the seller, their interests as the buyer, or vice versa, they've got to have alignment, not just on what's happening, what they're buying, etc., but like how this is going to thrive in the next phase of its life and the next phase of its journey. And to be honest, often to do that, you've got to align financial incentives basically, and it's kind of that simple. Like it really is. Like you've got to have time. You physically, a lot of them are, like you said, they're linked to time. So time's important. Perhaps goals and achievements as well, or a combination of both. But you just got to have it. And if you're going into a process, or vice versa, going into a process trying to hack each other at that, that doesn't really work at the end of the day, because actually that's not in good faith effectively. So you've just got to be very transparent, very open about it, and understand that actually it's about facilitating each other's goals and working together as a new combined team, which is the most important thing. Like when you've been bought or when you're buying a business, is creating a new team. You're on the same side, you're not competing. And I think that's also a mental thing that, you've got to check into, that it's not you and them, it's you as the combined thing. And that's just important. So I would say it's not that I wouldn't overcomplicate it, if that makes sense. Like it is about just bringing people on the journey and making sure everyone's aligned, both in terms of process, people, etc., but also outcome effectively.
Okay, and in terms of the way that you structure your business, and I'm talking about succession planning, I'm talking about how you automate things, and you've said you actually delegate everything, and maybe that's helped with your exit. Have you got advice to entrepreneurs as to what they should do prior to exit to make that transition as easy and as lucrative and keep you as aligned as possible?
I would go back to the delegation point and building a great management team. One of the freak out things a lot of entrepreneurs go through on that basis, like, well, what does that leave me doing? And there is a role in leading an organization, and that is your role. And then suddenly when you realize that you've delegated everything, you still realize you've got a full day and you have millions of meetings, tons to do. So like, you don't get this mythical day where you've delegated everything and suddenly there's nothing to do and there's no role for you. It doesn't happen. Like, you're going to get loads of questions. You're going to have to set the vision. You're going to have to reiterate what the vision is over and over again. So there is a critical role within building teams and organizations for that. And that is your job. And that would be my thing, really. You are the glue that keeps the thing together, basically. And in time, that doesn't mean you have to be there forever, but like, that is your job. And it's very hard to explain, if I'm honest, but that's what it is, basically. And that's where your value then starts to lie within that context. You are the person who is leading. You are the person who is stitching things together, solving problems, whatever it might be. You're not the person building tech necessarily. You're not the person doing product, etc. So that's how I've looked at it. And then, yes, everybody, like I said, goes through the kind of, oh my God, what does that mean for me? Well, it's very hard to put that in what I would call a kind of standardized job spec. And that's why not many people are founders, and not many people are CEOs, and not many people are, because it's a very unique job, realistically. And quite often you're challenging yourself as to what I'm doing even valuable. And like, you need others to remind you, oh yeah, like, not that nothing would happen without you, because that's not the case, but like, you are facilitating a lot of things happening, and you are setting the pace quite often as well. So that would be my thing. Just really focus on that delegation piece. Don't worry so much about feeling like I haven't got a job spec which feels normal. No founder/CEO job is normal. And focus on that. That would be my biggest bit of advice.
Yeah, very helpful advice. If I could put one description in the job spec, it would be, your job is to outsource yourself.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, great. Okay, I'm going to do a summary and then we'll conclude. So number one, going back, how to build a solid business. A business is about generating revenue and profit, and this keeps the discipline that you actually need. Number two, as a leader, you should only do 3 things a week. Delegate the rest to people that are smarter than you. And then in terms of becoming an entrepreneur, before you begin, prepare mentally, and then on the journey, get lots of feedback and be willing to engage with mentors. In terms of why you should be an entrepreneur, well, here's Alex, he's living proof. But you should probably, in terms of starting a business, you should do it because it's probably going to be one of the most fulfilling things you'll do in your life. Number two, if you want to build a big startup and you want to scale up, what you probably need to do is think of a big audacious goal and then reverse engineer it. And because that's what's going to get investors really excited. And that's what you need to do. There are other business models, but pick the one that suits you. In terms of your strategy, don't set out to disrupt a competitor and beat them or disrupt a market. Solve someone's pain, solve a customer's pain. Do it over and over every single day, twice a day, and do that for 1 million customers, and you'll probably be successful. And then, of course, networking is key to success, and that's even more imperative now during lockdown. Find ways to network, offer value first, and get out of your comfort zone. And then finally, our favorite one, how to exit like a ninja, be more like Alex. Before you think about exiting, focus first on building a solid business, because otherwise no one's going to want to buy it. And then don't underestimate your exit, because you'll probably destroy a lot of value along the way. So make sure you get the right advice and support. There's lots out there. There's a lot of people that do it for a living. Don't leave it to chance. And then in terms of maximizing your exit and making the transition as smooth as possible, we come back to Alex's earlier point: delegate, set up leaders within your business, hire smart people, don't make it all reliant on you. Fabulous insights and wisdom, Alex. Anything else you want to add to that summary?
Not at all. That was perfect. Yeah, that was that was a great summary. That is, I would say in my last 5 years of experience, that's a very good articulation of like some very key points of value there. So no, it was a great summary.
Well, it was created by you. So thanks again for sharing. Now, where can we find you? I presume you're a busy person. Where can we find you online if we want to follow you and keep up to date with your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Alex Packham on pretty much everything. Website, alexpackham.com. I think personal site has all my social links and stuff like that. And yeah, Twitter, Alex Packham. I think Instagram is close to Alex Packham. You'll find me on there. But yeah, just pop my name into anything. Always sharing content about business, the journey, the next steps, challenges, etc. So tons of insights coming through on there daily as well.
Fabulous. Okay, great. Well, I'll certainly do that now. That's all from me. Thanks again for being on the show. Absolute pleasure. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's all for this episode. Keep tuning in for more exclusive insights from seasoned investors, accomplished entrepreneurs, and professional service advisors. Follow the Tippy Top blog on all major social media platforms, including Twitter, TikTok, Insta, Facebook, or now Meta, LinkedIn, and of course, you can find me, Alexander Lee, on LinkedIn, and you can also check out my website, thetippytop.com. Until next time, keep pushing, and I'll see you at the tippy top.